Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome to the first episode of Hindsight. Hindsight is basically looking at a situation after it happens to see what would have been the best outcome. No one is a perfect Fortnite player, as every situation is different, so being able to look at what you did versus what you should have done will help you become a better overall player. With this being said, you can't be too hard on yourself because most of the time what you ended up doing was what you thought was the best play at the time, so this is all about player development. I ended up getting 35th in the solo FNCS All-Star Showdown, so we're going to be going through my games and explaining sort of my thought process of certain plays and what I should have done in certain scenarios to not only help myself improve but also you guys. What I like to say is that I always like to learn from other people's mistakes, so let's hop right into it. Alright, so we're going to be hopping into game one of the solo all-star, and one of the things that I ended up doing here, I was sort of set up ahead of people, and I was just sort of seeing if other people were going to rotate first and how they were going to get shot at, and I sort of wanted to decide my rotate off of that, right? So there was sort of two obvious streamlines of how to rotate this. One was going from the right side, or one was going from the left side. I decided to go up the right side because I thought it would be a little bit easier. Perhaps there was a lot of people on the left side, so I ended up overbuilding a good bit here. But one of the mistakes that I ended up doing here was once I got tagged by that one dude on this side over here, I was sort of hyper focused on them, and there was a sense where I sort of tunnel visioned, knowing that, hey, I'm gonna get shot to my right side, but then again there was Notch coming here and then two other people flying in. So one of the mistakes that I should have realized is that with my later rotate compared to other people, there was going to be a need for more other people to rotate if that was through pads or whatnot. So I ended up getting landed on by Mojo, which ended up sort of not working out too well for me. I ended up surviving the situation, but again, I ended up not being the most beautiful when it comes to extra heals and mats, as I had a little bit of nerves and ended up overbuilding a good bit. This is the replay system not being the greatest, so ended up getting hit. Bam, used a good amount of builds here. So in hindsight, I should have been more aware on my left side. Even though I was getting shot from my right side, a lot of other stuff could have happened, and surely if I saw Notch, who was to the left of me, I would have boxed up earlier, or I would have built, so Mojo wouldn't have had the opportunity to shoot at me. So right here, I'm sort of getting info here. The best play when it comes to solos is to set up above other people when you don't have any mobility. This game I didn't have a pad or any peppers, so I'm like, hey, I'm gonna invest my mats to set up on above people so I can end up recycling a launch pad. I ended up giving up high ground here because I didn't have too much AR. I sort of thought in my head, hey, what's the high ground really going to give to me in this scenario? Because I'm not going to be like fighting for it, not going to be holding it. I ended up getting half in, half out. So put cone on head, and then people started flying in. Trashy ends up landing near me. And I sort of tunnel vision a little bit, looking for a hole, just looking for a little bit of tag just for moving zone surge, which I ended up realizing it wasn't too much of an issue. Trashy goes for a box, and the zone ends up pulling it pretty far. So if we hop on over to me here, again, I'm going to be going for the play for the recycle on a launch pad. But my issue here is I was shooting someone that wasn't going to launch pad. Arkham was rotating, and I decided to shoot him for whatever reason, instead of sitting in my cone and sort of dialing in where people are launching from. So as you can see right here, I'm sort of panicking, don't know where the pad is. Looking over here, as you can see on the left side, there was a pad placed. Maybe I would have realized that and gone for it. Just looking around, dropping down, looking for another pad, and fortunately enough, a pad does go in front of my eyes. So I end up getting the pad again. A big part of that was set up on my elevation, so that was a good play that I did. So if we hop on over to my gameplay, some guy comes behind me, zip lines there too, and I'm missing my shot. And I'm getting fried a good bit here, using the last of my builds, which is a good play by me. Just holding my walls. Zone ends up pulling back here. I'm doing good. A couple things that I'm doing bad. Obviously, the very lack of an impact frag is something that I need to look more for, especially in solos, so I can have more mats at this point of the game. As you can see, I have 0 kills, so that means I haven't really gotten too much. So I'm waiting here on edge. See Cow Gamer in front of me, hit him for a shield. Don't crack him, so I don't over aggress onto it when I sort of need an impact. So playing pretty passive here. I go for a zipline play, really good shot coming out by me. It's gonna lag again. So again, the title of this is Hindsight. So one of the hindsight thing is that Ilithi was right in front of me. Instead of me going for a med kit, which I ended up going for a med kit play to sort of milk out a little bit more placement points, a hindsight play of mine, Ilithi ended up actually being on like 1 HP. So he was 30 HP total. I see him chug cannoning. If I was more at a pounce state instead of a med kit state, then I could have gone for this kill, had a huge refresh chug cannon, and most likely would have done a better job. As you can see right here, it pulls elevation into water. Go for a med kit. I end up getting it off, but again, a second moving zone med kit isn't ideal because zone moves pretty fast. End up running out of builds here because of the elevation change. People jump into the water. Before, I was sort of hoping that someone would have waterfall down that I could have recycled, but no one recycles. So yeah, try to build and die here. I could have jumped in the water there, but I still would have died a storm most likely. So obviously the best play there would just be hoping to stay on top, going for a spray with my AR, getting a siphon of some sort, and just getting the elim point. So a couple of things that I could have done better there was just be more aware on my initial rotate. Would have saved me mats, would have saved me heals. Make sure that I know when I'm in zone. I sort of boxed up before I was even in zone on that one, which wasted a good amount of builds, and just stayed in my cone a little bit more to recycle a pad. And then when it came to this, making sure that I didn't dive too low while recycling the launch pads, which would have got me in a better situation. And just to be a little bit more aggressive, just knowing that this is solos and that everyone else is pretty weak. So as long as you have that confidence going into that 1v1, you know, and you do the right plays, and you're most likely going to come up on top. If I would have been more confident right there, jumped into Lithi's box, hit it, you know, didn't even need to hit a heavy pump while he was trying to heal, most likely would have been in a better situation. Lithi ended up getting second place this game, so obviously that's based off his raw skill, but you know, that could have been me. So yep, that is about the basics of the first game. So let's hop into the next one. All right, so I've been into game 2. I ended up doing a really poor play here. Instead of taking advantage of an early rotate and going towards more center, I ended up setting up on edge, hoping that there was going to be a lot of shots and surge tags that I was going to be able to get coming towards me. And it ended up to be that the spot that I was at, there was another dude set up right next to me, and we both got 0 tags. So it ended up setting myself up for being really bad on surge. What I would have done in hindsight, I would have rotated more center and been in a better position for this next zone. As you can see, I'm going to be struggling a lot when it comes to just being on edge the whole time and having to continue rotate and spending a lot of my mats. As we could see here, and we skipping ahead to sort of when surge was an issue, instead of having or getting an early rotate here, I decided to stay outside of zone and just trying to get tags the whole time. As you can see, only 7 above. Need around 100 tags when it comes to first surge, 90 people up. So it just put me at a very ugly position, and usually being on an edge zone means that there's other people that are at the same, you know, position that you are, pretty scuffed on surge, if that's mats and loot. So even if you do get a kill, you don't get too much off of them. Fortunately enough, I do end up getting a kill here, setting up late, not dying to surge or getting ticked at all. Poffy was right over there. Ended up taking a pretty good path, knowing that I have a surplus of brick, and knowing that I should box up on the brick because I have a lot of brick. Is just sort of good basic game knowledge there. I ended up getting the loot. Again, he had 0 shield. Like I said, a lot of people on edge zone are scuffed, so I ended up getting 0 shield, no mobility, but I ended up topping off my mats, so I got myself in a better position. So this is where the issue sort of becomes of where I'm struggling on trying to get a rotate as I'm on edge. A lot of people are scuffed around me. I see one dude to the left there. End up trying to make the rotate. And for some reason, I thought this guy was going to peek at me, and I get fried by him, wasting half of my shield that I have, more than half. And I just be in this very ugly position where I'm just going to be edge zone the whole time. So in hindsight, knowing that even though I was setting up in a position for surge, it ended up getting me 0 surge. So going more center would have been a better play because surge wasn't too much of an issue, and you could have got like a better spot or more opportunities, especially in solos. You just need a couple more tags. So I'm getting shot the whole time, wasting all my shields and getting me set up on edge. That was just sort of like the name of the story for this. I ended up making it to end game, but doing absolutely nothing with it. I feel like a lot of the other plays that I ended up doing are pretty good plays, pretty decent plays. I set up here. So in hindsight, in this game, my biggest flaw was definitely not rotating earlier, and just getting a better overall position and sort of focusing on surge on maybe the rotate towards more center. So yeah, that was definitely my issue there. And I would have been in a better position. And yet again, I got half and half out zone, as you can see. So in hindsight, if I had really good mats and just rotated a little bit earlier, I would have been in a god position to do really well in this game. So I sort of fumbled when it came to early game. All right, let's hop into the next one. All right, so we're going to be hopping into the third game. So this is honestly my second favorite out of the 6 games when explaining hindsight. So the hindsight here is I ended up getting beamed, and this is the one game that I am actually not holding any white HP. Instead, I'm holding an SMG. So I had the opportunity to pick up bandies. I didn't really have too many mech hits at my drop spot, so I ended up just picking up an SMG instead, and I ended up getting fried into a spot where I do have 6 minis. I think I had 10 minis total, but it would have been way worth to be holding bandies instead of the minis or the SMG itself. So in hindsight, I should have not carried the SMG and carried some type of white heals instead, because I end up wasting a bunch of mats on this rotate because I am absolutely terrified of dying. I ended up doing a good rotate. This is very similar to the first game. I ended up hitting a left side rotate, knowing that the right side rotate one didn't favor me too much, and it also seemed like there's a dude on the right side. So I see this guy Nate moving on the left side, decided to make my own little tarp, overbuilding a little bit, as I am terrified of getting beamed and eliminated before half and half out. So zone pulls far. There are a bunch of people on my edge. I'm very low on white HP, so I decided to end up actually using my own pad, because I thought if maybe it got blocked off or something else happened, then I would have died to zone. I think I'm actually hyper focused on epic whale here, and another reason why I didn't go for this launch pad over here was because of my white HP. If let's say I ended up having bandies and I was at 75 HP and 75 white HP, I would have maybe gone for this launch pad over here, knowing that I could maybe tank a little bit of storm. But right here, I'm really afraid of tanking storm, so I just end up having to use my own mobility for myself. As you can see, I build ahead, set up in a position, and then have to use it because I'm yet again really afraid. I could have been in a scenario where I end up using the one on the left side here, or I could just use wood, tarp out to the drop, knowing that the person that opened up the drop is going to get a launch pad and then launch pad away. There's a lot of stuff I could have done. I ended up doing a good play. I hit my pad. I then start going towards zone, and then I say, hey, there's a drop over here. I need some white HP. So then I end up going for the drop, knowing that I could just open it, hopefully get some more shield or white HP, and then launch pad into zone. So in hindsight, that was a pretty good play by myself. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see it since the replay system isn't the greatest. Oh, as you can see there, bam, now we going in. We're landing here. And then going into this end game, I got a med kit out of it, so it was a good gamble. Perhaps I did waste a box to box up on the drop, which, again, I was pretty low on mats. So I ended up playing ahead here. Again, just playing really scared, using a lot of my mats before I get shot at. And necessarily speaking, I could have maybe built less, especially in like this scenario. There's a lot of old builds here. Below on surge, so this is sort of where I end up panicking a little bit. Below on surge, haven't really had this issue too much today, other than, the game before this one. First zone surge was pretty rough, but I end up hearing a pad on my right, going for the location of the pad. I see the location of the pad. I end up going for it, hitting it in the sky. Not able to really recycle another pad here because I don't have any extra white HP. Like before, I used to do it with my med kits. No med kits this game. End up landing here. I end up also landing early, knowing that I'm below on surge and that most likely surge will zap. Well, in these really stacked lobbies, people are really scuffed, so surge isn't too much of an issue on first movings if it pulls far. And here it pulls far. Again, I'm looking for a kill. I end up getting a kill on a midi, which would have set me up in a really good position. But I'm like, dang, I just hit this guy for 16 and I'm still below on surge. So I'm going for the loot. There's so much on my mind. Instead of claiming the loot and just getting out of there, making my own box, I am afraid as zone zapped me once right there. And again, I'm over looting, and then I just sort of take the 50-50 with 40R here because I'm like, hey, dude, I need to hit him. I'm getting zapped by surge, so I might as well take a 50-50. When in reality, if I would have waited one more second later, surge would have been off. So in hindsight, this was a really bad play, and that I sort of panicked here, and this is something that you want to avoid and sort of read the room, read the surroundings. As I would have only gotten zapped, I think once, maybe twice in that whole scenario, and just sort of realizing, hey, you just got a kill, you're at pretty good health now. You could take 1 or 2 zaps as long as you stay alive. So I would have been able to do a lot with this game. I just would have went for the loot and disengaged there, as I did get a pretty big impact on to midi. So yep, this was the basics of game 3. Alright, so hopping into the 5th game, I was extremely tilted. I was super upset after absolutely throwing my last game. I ended up playing on a drop right here. I ended up getting the launch pad, and I ended up seeing this guy is sort of panicking off a surge. So didn't want to give him any free tags, and I sort of said, okay, you got to come towards me. That's fine with me. I'm down to do this box fight, even though I have a great attack. This guy's getting zapped. I end up getting a trade tag, just allowing him to break it, and then just having my 2 tag shots ready. Absolutely taking advantage of me being good on surge and him struggling there. So I got a pretty free kill right there. A lot of people again in surge, man. This is sort of similar to the last game when it comes to the solar, to all the impacts that I get in this scenario. I don't get the kill there, but I end up getting the loot, which is pretty important, as I'm going to be able to get even more loot, another person dying, maxing up on my mats. So looking into hindsight here, there's a lot of people on this edge. Usually when there's people on this edge, someone's going to be forced to use a launch pad. I could have expanded a little bit in with the extra mats or whatnot, but I saw people using or trying to get the loot themselves, so I ended up doing my own rotate. And then when I'm doing this rotate, I end up getting fried in the back, right? So one thing that I could have done better is make sure to be aware where people are at. I was sort of focused on getting a lot of loot, so I don't really know who's where. So first thing I could have done is waited, used my own pad if no one else uses a pad, so I could have been able to recycle this pad. Another thing is I end up getting fried so much that I have to heal. And maybe if I was like right here and I heard the pad and I didn't get shot by low Nate, then I could have gone and played with the pad, take a little bit, Ticks of Storm, and then maybe realize like, hey, dude, this guy's spraying at me in the back. He must be super shambles, or he's going to be using the pad himself. So end up hitting a really good play here. I'm like, okay, there's going to be people needing surge and holding people for zone. So I'm going to sit in this bush with my sniper. I'm going to snipe someone and then pad onto their loot. There we go. RichHomieQuinn, 200 IQ plays, ends up hitting the snipe onto Falconer, who was looking for some surge. But the pad that I placed actually hit my head on top of the trees, which made me do like a little short pad, which could have been pretty bad. People could have built up to the loot and gone for the loot. But I knew that this guy was probably pretty set, so I overbuilt with the mats, and I end up topping off on mats, which is a really good play here by me. And I am in a god tier position. So someone ends up padding to my north here, and I'm going towards it. This guy jumps down, tries to beam me, doesn't really get anything off, and then I end up hitting the pad and going towards zone. I end up making sure that I set up elevated high so I can recycle a pad for the first move in zone, which is a really good play. People end up fighting right next to me. I think they gets epic whaled. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to third party it. Overbuild a good bit, but I had the mats to sort of do so. Sort of trying to play a little bit more confident. So zone pulls far. I'm looking around at my cone, right? So I think my issue here is that I ended up having a wall on Jay, so I was just hyper focused on Jay when obviously I shouldn't have been super focused on him, as there were so many people set up over here. One of these guys for sure had a pad. With how I died in the game before this one, I was just tilted, and I ended up going for a bad play where I saw people going for pads. I saw a pad to the right, and I'm still looking to my left. I see this guy going over there, so I see Jay go for a pump on this guy, and I think because I died because of someone doing that, or I wasn't upset at Jay for doing this, right? I was sort of like, oh dude, that guy just got like such a huge or when Arkham killed me, I said he had such a huge impact on me, I could do the same, right? So then here I am going towards, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pump this guy before he hits a pad, and then he ends up attacking me, and then another dude that got attacked ends up rolling me. So yeah, tilted. But hindsight, I should have just stayed in my cone, seeing where people are rotating. Don't go for the shotgun shot unless if You're in a way better position than me. So if I was just a little bit more patient, looking around, looking for another pad, there was a pad right there. In hindsight, just be a little bit more patient. Don't be tilted. You know, learn from the game before, and you know, realize why Arkham's play was good, because Arkham had elevation when he was going for the pad and shot mid-air. Not, he didn't try to look for a fight before going for the pad. You know, there's so much I could have done better. It's really tilting looking at it, but this is why we look back at it, and instead of just being like, hey, I got really unlucky. No, I didn't get unlucky. There's a lot of stuff I could have done better. Don't blame everything on being unlucky, and learn from your mistakes. All right, so we're gonna be hopping into the final game, and this game I actually do have a chug launcher and a launch pad and really good mats, but what I don't have is surge. I'm at 98 below on surge here, and I just ended up setting up in a really bad position. So I ended up playing this game different than I usually did. So if you see this house in front here, I end up setting on top of this house instead of my usual position, which is sort of around here on the right side. And I got no surge tags coming my way. What I should have done was find someone that didn't have a sniper in their inventory. And before I got to this point where I was struggling in surge, I had the chug launcher. I should have been like, hey, you could take a 50-50. You know, if they hit you for 100 damage and you hit them for 50 damage, you could still just chug launcher up, right? So I didn't take advantage of that 50-50 opportunity. So I get put in a really disgusting scenario that I put myself into, right? So I'm like, hey, I'm really bad on surge. I just got to fight this guy. I do not want to die to surge here. I know these are my old builds. I mess up an edit. End up hitting it. An edit here, getting this guy knocked down. Only 25 white tag. It's just not going to be enough. So here, I miss out on a kill. I missed out on my free surge right there. That should have been a free kill. I just keep getting zapped by surge here. Even though I do have a chug launcher, it's just going to be getting me focused. Other people will say, hey, you know, this guy's getting tagged by surge below me. I'm just going to start spraying him. So I end up wasting so much mats and HP just because I didn't take a 50-50 for surge earlier. So again, all these positions I've been in really good zones. Out of the whole day, I got 4 out of 6 half and half out zones. I made it to every single end game. I just completely folded when it came to the scenarios, man, and that's just so be it. So again, good on surge because surge is gone. So I'm in a position where, hey, I have these minis. I'm gonna pop my last mini there. I ended up going through all 6 minis, dropping on to low ground because I know there is a launch pad here. So this is a good play. I'm like, hey, I remember that guy placed the launch pad, so I'm just gonna drop low so I can recycle that pad. Ended up getting sprayed a lot, and then fireflies came, and I thought this was the death of me, trying to break the wood before the fireflies spread onto the wood that's near me or the ground. When I was really panicking here, when I had a chug launcher, if you use a chug launcher on fire, then it puts out the fire, so I was panicking for no reason. Zone pulls towards me here. I know that I need to get an impact. I have a pad, but at this point, my pad isn't too useful because I really have no mats, and went from really good to really bad real quick. So end up getting the impact right there. Just being really confident, knowing that I just need to take this wall, I need to get this kill. End up getting the kill here, and then I think I end up aiming towards the launch pad that was placed on the floor here. I end up boxing up the pad. Let's go see what I do here. Although I did get an impact, it just wasn't an impact that was good enough. I end up trying to play ahead of zone here because I want to use as little mass as possible. I also know that I'm low on surge here, so I was sort of in the mindset of getting ahead, only having to build one box, not sort of like box up, hit a launch pad, and then box up again. A play here could have been to set up a launch, find a place to launch, and then try to launch in someone's box. Epic Whale Classic. I end up getting some good mats here. I end up getting only the wood and metal, right? I should have been, hey, there's a dead body here. There's probably a brick somewhere. Look for the brick. Don't look for the brick. And then here, in my mind, I'm not really focused on where zone's at. I'm just sort of going through the motion of rotating. Again, could have hit a pad here. It would have been a very possible play if I just look up, place my pad. Sort of towards the dead side, so let's go see if there was a spot for me to place it. Could have maybe placed it somewhere, would have got me in a better position. So there was an elevation change here, right? And from this point, I didn't realize that there was an elevation change. All I saw was a lot of old builds because it pulled back. So being able to place a pad there would have got myself in a better position. These are the last of my builds here. Overbuilding yet again. Going over old loot. I crack Rex, exploit in the box, and then he just hits me. End up getting the kill here, but again, it's almost too late. I have this attack here. I do a really bad peek there. If you're wondering why I didn't do anything with that wall, that was actually Rex's wall. So I'm trying to play for the flopper here that I saw for Rex's body. I then end up getting in a fight with Jay. Jay ends up killing me. I hit 2 shots, but the 3rd shot just did not connect. I missed it. And again, I think in this scenario, the play would have just been to hit a launch pad and then position myself in a little bit more mid-ground layer, as it did have a elevation change. But at the end of the day, my issue of this game was just not 50-50 for Surge when you have a chug cannon, and knowing that you can just chug back up. Instead, I waited to the very end, just getting really nothing to offer to me, and Surge didn't kill me, but it killed me, if that makes sense. So hope you guys did enjoy the episode today. Again, hindsight makes everything that you do wrong look super stupid, because you really get to see what you should have done. Hindsight is 20/20 is what I like to say. So although a lot of the things that I did wrong here may have seemed obvious, and the tense in the heat of the moment, and it finals where there's a lot of money on the line, a lot of mistakes do happen. So I hope you guys do understand that. If you guys do want to see another episode of this, make sure to drop a like, comment what you guys want to see next, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out, boys.
Run away from the past and the nonsense. Tired of toxic games, not an option. Made it up from the mud.